Welcome everybody to IGN Unfiltered. It is our monthly interview show where we sit down with the best, brightest, most fascinating minds in the games industry. I'm extremely pleased to be joined by the co-founder and chairman of Harmonix Music Systems, Alex Rogopoulos. It's always good to see you, sir.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me in.
You have had a very unique career, which I'm eager to talk to you about. I mean, Harmonix itself is such a unique entity within the game space. You know, you guys don't just make, you're not video gamers who happen to make music games. You're musicians who happen to make video games, which I've always thought is the real big distinction between you and other people that make games. So what I wanted to start with is on that music background. Were you always musically inclined as a kid?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, I started studying instruments as a young child and studied them for years. Although I just want to quickly hedge that and saying I never got very good at them. You know, even though I took lessons for years and years on a bunch of different instruments, I was always kind of a hack. And, and actually the frustration I felt with never being able to really break through and get great at an instrument was part of what, you know, created the motivation to do what we do.
Interesting. So the seed was planted very early.
Yes.
And you were smart enough to capitalize on it later. But I mean, and clearly you must have been, you're that alone indicates you're a bright guy who, if you could take that forward, but you ended up at MIT. So was that always your dream, being from the Boston area? Was MIT always sort of one of the big goals?
Well, it was, I think, in large part because my father went to MIT. He was a chemical engineer there, and he very much began indoctrinating me at a young age, you know, that's where I was going to go to college. Yeah. So that was kind of understood from the beginning.
And then in college, I believe is that where you met your fellow Harmonix co-founder, Eran Agozi?
That's right. We met as undergrads in some music theory classes, but then we ended up as office mates in graduate school at the MIT Media Lab, and the two of us shared a passion for this mission, and we both decided to start Harmonix when we graduated.
Which, again, it's like, well, actually, let me still back up for a second. So before you meet him, but before you guys start Harmonix, what did you want to do with your life? You get the pressure from dad on getting to MIT. Maybe you should go into engineering too. But what did young Alex Rogopoulos want to do before video games came around?
Well, I always loved music as a kid, starting very young, and then also loved computers. Started programming when I was, I don't know, 6th or 7th grade. And also loved video games as a kid. I think my dad brought home a Magnavox Odyssey system when I was 3 years old or 2. And so, although it's funny, I wasn't thinking about games at all when we started Harmonix. We'll come back to that. But definitely computers and music were, you know, my two greatest interests as a kid. When I went to MIT, actually, I went there thinking I was going to be a programmer. I entered in computer science, but really after a year or so at MIT, I realized that like everyone else there in computer science was better at it than I was. I thought, okay, maybe this isn't what I should be trying to do professionally. So I switched, you know, eventually found my way to majoring in music at MIT, which is a strange thing to major in at MIT. There aren't many music majors there, but it's an amazing place to study music, actually, because when you're studying music at MIT, you're also studying, you know, calculus and physics and chemistry and material science and special relativity and like all of the,
Your major's almost a break at that point.
It is, and so it's, and you get to, while studying music, you get to meet incredible other people from other disciplines that lead to the kind of, you know, brainstorming that, you know, led to Harmonix, actually.
Wow. So your first game, when you and Eran get together, it's called The Axe, which let you use a PC joystick to do guitar solos.
Yeah, so that was the first thing we ever did. It was kind of an outgrowth of the work we were doing as grad students together at the Media Lab. And it was not a game, actually. It was just a creative tool. And, you know, we were, when we started Harmonix, as I mentioned, we weren't thinking about video games at all. We were just thinking of our, you know, this problem we wanted to solve, which was how to help people who are not musicians feel what it feels like to play music. Because, you know, playing music, it is really one of life's greatest pleasures. It is profoundly joyful to make music. And most people try to learn an instrument, and almost all of them quit because it's so damned hard. And then they spend their whole lives like wishing that they could. What if, right? And so we just wanted to invent new ways to, for people to feel what it feels like to make music. And so our first product, the Axe, was our first attempt at that. It was a way for you to improvise guitar solos or pianos, really any instrumental solos through a joystick, where you would make the melodies rise and fall, or the rhythms grow more and less intense, or control the music in different ways with different buttons and things like that. And it was an absolute failure. I mean, really, no one bought it for lots of reasons.
So just commercially, but it did what you wanted it to do?
Well, sort of. In fact, it was a bit, we were a bit blinded by it. It had this problem, which is that it made an incredible demo. And everyone who played it sort of laughed and got really into it, and this is amazing, how does this even work? It was a little bit magical because the machine was composing music and you were manipulating it with a high degree of control. Yeah. In real time, and it made a really cool demo. And because of how positively everyone reacted to the demo, we became convinced that it was worthy of being a product. And we were, kids at this point, so we were really clueless about what it took to make something commercially successful. And the point is, though, that people had their 15 minutes of fun with it, and then they were like, okay, well, now what do I do with it? They moved on, right? And that's, you can't make a product out of something that only entertains people for 15 minutes, right. Except in maybe theme park contexts or things like that. But we were so young and naive about it that it took us a long time. It took us years, really, to fully appreciate the fact that that basic play paradigm that we had been pursuing was not sufficient to build a business around.
Do you still have a copy of it around? You ever fire it up and look at it from time to time?
I do still have a copy sitting on my shelf, but I never even attempt to fire it up. It's more there as a constant sort of reminder to
know your roots.
And just to be humble.
Yeah.
Just always, I just try to keep this whole complete track record of failures in constant display, so that you never forget.
Well, after that was a product called CamJam, if I have this correct, which let you do guitar solos using body controls via a webcam attached to your computer. Now, that sounds, first of all, like a precursor to both Guitar Hero and Dance Central in a crazy way.
And Fantasia as well.
And Fantasia. And then was that also used in Disney theme parks as well?
Almost. So we went through this period, as I just mentioned, where we were beginning to appreciate that the kind of experience we had created was great for sort of short-term, 15-minute experiences, great for theme parks. And so we did do a project for Disney, which was installed in Epcot Center. Maybe it still is. It was there for quite a long time. It was just gesturally controlling music. But instead of a joystick, there were infrared sensors tracking your hands.
Yeah.
I think it was called What If Music Were in the Air, or it was the exhibit or something like that. So we did that, and then CamJam was a product that used a camera to track your motion, and you could control music in various ways. And it was kind of our first experience with, experimentation with motion control of music. Again, neither of those products went anywhere at all.
Well, I mean, how do you hook up with Disney to get? Does somebody who bought CamJam, is it a Disney? How does that connection happen?
Yeah, I don't think we ever even shipped CamJam as a commercial product. That was just a demo that we built, and I think we went to a trade show that was focused on the theme park industry, and we were showing off this demo that we had made, and I think someone from Disney saw it and liked it.
Interesting.
And that's how it got.
Did you ever go down to Epcot to see it?
Yeah, several times. Yeah.
That's cool. That would be. I would feel like I made it at that point.
That was pretty fun. Well, yeah, it's easy to say that, although, you still had bills to pay, and we were struggling to pay them. So,
so then you move forward. Harmonix starts to evolve into more of a video game developer. Frequency and Amplitude come along.
Yeah, I mean, and that was after a total right turn for us as a studio. I mean, something happened to trigger that. I mean, we had been struggling for years to make the interactive music thing work. But then something happened, which is that rhythm games appeared in Japan.
Yeah.
DDR, of course, but also Beatmania, Parappa, which was really the kind of light bulb moment for us when I was playing Parappa for the first time, and I was just grinning from ear to ear playing that game. And I think at that point we realized, all right, video games is how we can do what we're trying to do, but in a way, well, first of all, where you have these this incentive structure for long-term engagements, and second of all, where there's an actual business model, to pay the bills. And so we, at that point, began hiring a bunch of video game developer talent to try to build out our skill set in that area and start prototyping our first games.
So we can as a Guitar Hero Rock Band fan of what you guys do, it's fair to trace the sort of inspiration for all of it back to Parappa?
I think so, yeah.
That's
certainly,
cool.
I mean, to some degree, Beatmania, also, some of the early Konami games, but definitely, Parappa was transformative for us.
For much more on Alex Rogopoulos' fascinating career at Harmonix, be sure to check back every week for new segments from this interview, and check back every month for brand new episodes of IGN Unfiltered.